Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to be looking at exercises which focus more on the abdominals rather than the hip flexors. The reason this is important is that as pole dancers we use our hip flexors a lot to do any kind of leg raise, which includes inverts, arms only positions, shoulder mounts, so where we're just bringing the knee up towards the chest. Now, if our hip flexors become really strong and we don't really work the abdominals as much, then we can start to see weakness in the ab area and then tightness in the hip flexor area. So the reason why this is so common is because our hip flexor comes all the way from the top of the femur, all the way up through the front of the pelvis and then attaches into the lower back. And then our abdominals, as we know, the main ones that we're kind of talking about today, attach onto the front of the pelvis and then come all the way up and then attach into the rib cage, okay? So as you can see, they kind of cross over a little bit in terms of where they attach. So when we do movements like this crunching movement, which we always kind of think, oh, well, that's an ab exercise, you can't really take out the hip flexor movement completely, okay? So the other thing to consider is that when we bring the knee up towards the chest, we're obviously shortening that hip flexor, and then we do crunches, we're going to be using both of those muscle areas. So when we do things like big leg raises, often it's hard to get the abs involved because the hip flexors are doing so much work. Okay, so the aim for today is to show you how you can do some exercises which you're never going to be able to switch off your hip flexors or completely relax them when you're doing these types of exercises. What we can do is encourage them to do less work and focus more on the abs. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do today, now that you've got a bit of an idea of why we're doing this, is we're going to do a bit of an assessment just so you can see if this is a problem area for you. So the very first simple way of seeing if this is an issue for you is just to see what your posture is like. So as we've already said, hip flexors attach from the front of the leg all the way up to the lower back. So when that shortens, you get this posture type, which is that lordotic arched lower back, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And this in itself is not a bad thing, by the way. There's no such thing as like a really bad posture. It is just a case of knowing that you might have a bit of tightness in those hip flexors. And as you can see, as I go into that position, it stretches out my abs, which again in itself can stop them from being as strong. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing to think about is, do you have a natural posture where you arch your lower back and stick your butt out? Okay, so that's just something that you can have a think about at home. The next thing we're going to do is, and I want you to be really honest with yourself on this one, so I'm going to show you the movement. I'm not really going to tell you anything about it. I want you to pause the video, do it, see what happens naturally without you thinking about it, and then I'm going to explain some of the things that may have happened for you. So you're going to lay on your back. I want you to just pop your hands by your sides here. You're going to lift your legs up straight out in front, and all I want you to do is drop your heels down to the floor. Okay, and then you can tuck and just do the same thing again. Okay, so pause the video, give that a couple of goes and just note anything that may or may not have happened through your hands when you were doing that movement. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. And so if we have overactive hip flexors or maybe weak abdominals, then you might have noticed that your back started to lift up off of the floor as your legs got lower and lower. Some of you, this might not be much of a problem. Okay, for some of you, your back might have started arching up right at the top with your legs still quite high. All right, so that's a sign that your hip flexors are engaging, okay, which is then lifting your back up, so going into that arched back position that we just talked about a second ago. Okay, and then your abs are lengthening and maybe not doing quite as much work to control that leg movement. Okay, like I said before, we're never going to be able to isolate just one or the other, but we would like to see a little bit more activation in the lower abs than that. The final thing that you can think about or even just consider when you are doing exercises is that if you are doing an ab workout and you get lower back pain, that's quite a big sign that your hip flexors are doing a lot of work, because as I've said before, your hip flexors attach into the lower back. If your hip flexors are doing a lot of the work and they're constantly pulling on the lower back, you might find that it just gets like, not even necessarily bad pain, but it's just working a lot. And you know, that means that you know that your abs aren't necessarily doing as much work because you're feeling all of the DOMs and the achiness around your back, which shows that your hip flexors are doing a lot of the work. So those are just a few things that you can consider as to whether this is an area that you need to focus on. Before we get started for today, the last thing I want to talk to you about is reciprocal inhibition. It's a fancy word. All it basically means is that when one muscle engages, the other one has to lengthen. So a very easy example of this is a bicep curl. So as I shorten my bicep, my tricep has to lengthen. This means I've got more muscular activation in my bicep than my tricep, okay? Obviously we know that we have eccentric strength as well, so your muscle can still engage whilst lengthening, but we've got a stronger contraction on this shorter side. So in some of the exercises, we're going to be focusing on squeezing the glutes and the hamstrings, which is the opposite side to the hip flexors. So that means the hip flexors will be longer and hopefully not quite as switched on, which means we can then focus our attention on the abs. The equipment that we're going to use today, we're going to need a long resistance band, we're going to use a chair or any kind of raised platform, all right, and everything else is going to be body weight, okay? So grab what you need to get and let's get started. So for the first exercise today, we are going to look at doing some leg raises, but with a really active squeeze and push down with the back. So remember that assessment I got you to do at the beginning with the legs coming down to see if your back lifted? We're now going to actively pull the back down and just do some kind of leg movements and see if we can get those hip flexors to switch off a little bit. So we're going to lie face up. And so the first thing we want to do is think about squeezing through the glutes and the hamstrings. So remember what we talked about with the reciprocal inhibition? If we've got a little bit of a squeeze through here, then our hip flexors are going to stop doing quite as much because they're going to feel protected, they're going to feel stable. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to press the back down to the floor. So that's going to, again, increase that pelvic tilt. So tucking under the tailbone to squeeze the abs and squeeze the glutes. Okay? Now, in terms of where your legs go, this is going to really depend on your level. So the first thing that we can do is literally just slide one leg out at a time and then pull it back in. Okay, so you can do this variation if you want. If that's too easy for you, you can then bring the legs up, and we're always going to just do one leg at a time, really focusing on squeezing the glutes as we go. And the hardest one is straight legs, squeeze through the abs, squeeze through the glutes, and we're going to lower down one at a time. Okay, so I want you to pick your variation, and then I'm going to count you through from there. So tuck the tailbone under, squeeze through the lower abs, press the back down towards the floor. Try and get a bit of a squeeze through your glutes. This was a hard one to think about engaging. Pop your hands on your bum if you need to and just feel for a little bit of a squeeze. Bring your legs into whatever position you want to, and we're going to just bring one leg out at a time. So let's go for it. 1, 2, keep the glutes squeezed. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and relax out, okay? Now that should have felt like it was really working your abs. If you didn't feel it, you need to do a couple of things. You're either going to need to press the back down even more strongly into the floor, you need to squeeze your glutes more, or you need to move to a harder variation of the leg movements that we're doing, okay? So this needs to be extremely active, and we need to get a lot of awareness into those different areas. Okay, so tuck the tailbone under, press the back down to the floor, squeezing through the abs, squeezing the glutes, lifting the legs up, and then as we lower down, let's go for it. Squeezing the butt, that's 1, squeezing the other side, that's 2. Keep going. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and then just relax out. So the last thing that I didn't say at the beginning, but that now that we're doing some leg movements you might notice, is that you get a bit of a clunking in your hips. This shouldn't be painful. If it's a painful thing, then you should always go and speak to someone about it. But if you're feeling just like a bit of a clunk and a lack of control through the hips, then that's another indicator that your hip flexors are switching on a bit too much. We're not getting that ab engagement, okay? So if you are getting that kind of clunkiness, then you need to drop down the level that you're doing and increase the active engagement that you've got. Okay, we're gonna do one more set of these. So tucking under, squeezing the bum, squeezing the abs, pressing the back down to the floor. Go into your leg position that you're doing, squeeze the glutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, and that's 10, and then come out. Give it a little shake out through the back. For the next exercise, you're going to need the platform that I talked about at the start. So I've just placed a couple of yoga blocks together. You can have yoga blocks, you can use a step, you can use a chair. I would recommend not having anything too high, although it is going to be fine to have a chair which is quite high. I think we're going to get a better result if you've got something a little bit lower. So a few yoga blocks is perfect for this. So go and grab what you need and then just come back when you're set up. So you're going to bring yourself into a face-up position. You're going to pop your feet on your platform, whatever you're using, and you can drive your heels down. So you don't have to have your feet flat down if you don't want to. Okay, so when we go into this movement, we're going to feel a lot of engagement in the hamstrings and the glutes, which is going to, again, like we've talked about already, try and get those hip flexors just to chill out a little bit. Okay, so we're going to tuck the tailbone under, we're going to push the heels down into your platform, squeeze the glutes and lift up. Okay, so we're in kind of like a mini glute bridge shape. We're then going to bring the hands either by your head or you can just keep them by your side, just wherever is comfortable for now. And we're just going to crunch forward, squeezing through the abs and then relaxing back down. So that's 1. Let's keep going. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Keep going. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, relax down, okay? If you want to stop a bit earlier than 15, then you're absolutely welcome to, but I think because we're doing quite small crunches, it's better to get kind of a longer set in. Okay, so you will be feeling your legs switching on, but hopefully you're feeling this a lot in your abdominals and your hip flexors aren't doing too much, okay? So have a little breather, just take a few nice deep breaths. Give ourselves some time to recover in between. Okay, if you need more time to relax, then pause the video, but otherwise let's go for another set. So we're going to drive the heels down, we're going to tuck the tailbone under, squeeze into the glutes, lift up the bum. Just go as high as you feel comfortable, hands wherever you're comfortable, and we're going to just crunch up. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, keep going, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and relax out. So when we're doing this exercise, I want you to really focus on trying to keep the hips lifted. I noticed myself kind of throughout that, my hips started to drop a little bit more. Okay, this is just because it's hard to maintain that lift, to make the abs kind of take most of the work. So you've just got to try and keep aware of your body position as you're kind of going through the set, okay? So take a nice couple of deep breaths here, give yourself some time to recover, and we're going to go for another set in a second. If you need more time, you know what to do, pause the video. So pressing the heels down, squeezing up through the hips, keeping those glutes squeezed, hands up and crunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and relax out. Give it a little shake out. Hopefully you are not feeling anything in your lower back, okay? If you are, then you want to get a bigger squeeze in your glutes. You can maybe even drop down a little bit. It might just be that you're not quite ready for that full lift yet, okay? But the idea is that hopefully you are feeling most of this in the front of your belly, in the abdominals, okay? And maybe just in the hamstrings and the glutes a little bit, which is all good. But hopefully the lower back and the hip flexors are feeling nice and chilled. For the next couple of exercises, you don't need any equipment. Okay, so you're gonna lie face up. For this next exercise, you're gonna need to self-assess a little bit of how kind of low your leg's gonna come down towards the floor. So this is gonna be dependent on how it feels in the front of your hips. Okay, so you can have your legs quite high or you can have them quite low. So I'm just gonna show you an example of each one first so that you know what we're doing. So it's gonna have the hands down by the sides. We're gonna crunch up through the upper body, so squeezing through the abs. We're then gonna bring the legs just bent out in front. They don't need to look pretty. We're gonna swing them up, crunching through the abs, and then we're going to drop the bum down, keeping that crunch, and then we're going to lower the legs down. So you might want to stop up here, or you might want to come all the way down, and then we're going to just repeat that movement and come through. Okay, so like I said, hopefully this will not be getting into your hip flexors too much. If it is, then you want to reduce the movement that you're doing and really focus on crunching the upper body through, okay? So let's go for it. We're going to lift the chest, crunch through the abs, bring the legs out. We're going to swing up and then come back down, crunching through, lowering the legs down, and then we're going to repeat. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10. Bring the legs down and then just come up to sitting for a second. Okay, just give yourself a little shake out. If you find that your neck is starting to get sore because it's working really hard, then think about tucking your chin back into your chest, okay, so that you can kind of keep that active engagement through the neck as well. Okay, alternatively, you can make this even smaller again, keep your chest and your head down and just do the kind of crunch up through the pelvis and a very low lower through the legs. Okay, but the main thing is that we're feeling it in the right place. So let's go for another set. Face down, tuck your chin, crunch up through, and let's go for it. Legs out. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and then relax and come up to sitting for a second. So in this exercise, and in all of the exercises really, as I kind of said at the beginning, we're never going to completely disassociate from our hip flexors. You know, they're part of our body because of their attachment. We're always going to be using them a bit. This is just a really important area to focus on, especially when we come onto harder kind of trunk and core exercises, which we're going to be doing in the session on Wednesday. Okay, so just make sure that you are feeling all the right stuff. And if you need a longer break, then you know what to do. Just pause the video and have some more kind of relaxed time. Otherwise, let's go for our final set. So tuck the chin, tuck up and through, bring the legs out, and we're gonna go crunch and lower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, relax out, give it a little shake out. Well done everyone. For the next exercise today, we're going to do some tucks through the pelvis and lifting them up towards the ceiling. So again, you have options with how you want to put your legs. So you can either have them kind of squeezed into a little ball, you can have them slightly straighter, or you can have them completely straight. Okay, and the aim here is we're gonna crunch up through the pelvis, lifting up through the abs and then lowering back down. Okay, so we're already quite short in the hip flexors. All right, so we need to make sure that we're still getting a bit of a squeeze through the glutes, so you can get a little bit of engagement here, and then we're gonna just lift up and then back down. If you wanna have straight legs, you're gonna think about lifting and then coming back down, and the bigger that you do, the harder this is gonna be, okay? So you can pick your variation, and let's go for it. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and relax down, okay? So it is really super difficult to kind of get a glute engagement in this, so don't worry too much about it. What I will say is that the easiest point to think about that squeeze is when you get to the top and you get that little thrust up, okay? So if you can't do it in any other position, try and get a bit of a squeeze right at the top, okay? And that's just gonna keep your awareness in that area, and again, hopefully we're feeling it all in the abs and the hip flexors are all feeling nice and good. Okay, so let's just take a nice deep breath before we go for another set. Okay, arms down by your sides, bring your legs into position, and we're gonna go for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and relax out. Whew. Give yourself a little bit of time to chill. Nice deep breaths. Well done everyone, you're doing really good. I really hope you're all feeling it in the right place and that my cues are helping you through. Okay, we're going to do one last set of these. All right, remember if it's getting a little bit too difficult, you can kind of crunch into a smaller ball, or if you're finding it too easy, you can straighten your legs out. And if you're finding it super easy, you can even pause the video and add on extra sets in between stuff. You're always welcome to do that with any video, obviously. Okay, so let's go for our last set. Bringing the legs up, and we're going to go crunch and lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and last one, 10, and relax down. Give it a little shake out, give your belly a little rub. For the final set of exercises for today, we're going to use a resistance band. So this one's quite a light band, and as you can see, I've just tied it round into a large loop here. And you do want it to be quite light. This is just going to be, and you'll see in a second, it's just going to bring a little bit of awareness to where we're engaging things. And we're also going to do some slightly bigger leg movements. So if you're the sort of person that does have tight hip flexors, I am also one of those people. When you do kind of like big straddle leg lowers, or even just like kind of pike leg lowers or anything like that, and you get that crunchy kind of hip feeling that I was saying about earlier, then this is going to be a really good one for you. And this is a way that you can start working on those bigger movements whilst getting some nice active kind of positioning in the abs, in the glutes, and all of the areas that we've been talking about today. So we're going to lie face up. You're going to bring your band around your foot, and you're just going to pull down. So as you can see, I want that to be quite a stretchy long band. And all we're going to do is we're going to bend the knee slightly, and we're just going to press that leg down towards the floor against the band. What this should do, and if it doesn't, then you need to be more aware of what is engaging, is it should be squeezing your glute and also slightly squeezing your hamstring. So as we've talked about today, by doing that, we are going to be getting the hip flexors to sort of calm down a little bit, but we're also going to be stabilizing the pelvis, which is another very important part of doing kind of ab exercises. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get into this position. We're going to bring the opposite knee up towards the chest. We're going to tuck the tailbone under, squeezing through the free leg as well and through the lower abs. And we're going to pull the leg in towards the chest. Make sure we're keeping a squeeze on the outside glute and keeping that opposite leg engaged, okay? So we're going to straighten the leg out and pull back in. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, and 10, relax out. Okay, so this one's actually quite hard in the sense that there's so many things to think about. Okay, so don't worry if you're not quite getting it straight away, or if you're not really feeling the glute engaging on that free leg. It will get there, it's just a case of building that awareness, okay? So this time we're gonna do the same position again with the banded leg, and then with the other one we're gonna keep it straight, and we're gonna just do some half straddle positions. So we're not going to be coming all the way round or any of these big movements. We're literally just going to come out a bit to where we feel comfortable and then pull it back in. This one's going to be very important that we keep the tailbones tucked under, that we keep the abs engaged and we keep the glutes activated, okay? Because this is going to be quite hip flexor heavy otherwise, all right? So we're going to keep the other leg out and we're going to bend it and then squeeze that glute and hamstring. And then we're going to tuck the tailbone under. We're going to just straighten out the leg to where you feel comfortable. It doesn't need to be completely straight. It can be here, okay? And we can just do the movements like this. So just go to where you feel comfortable, squeeze the glutes, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, bring it back in, okay? So with that one, you've got to be even more aware of keeping the back squeezed down towards the floor. So we're going to change sides now, bending the leg, getting a bit of a squeeze through the glute and the hamstring, and we're going to just start by doing our knee in and then straight out. Tuck the tailbone under and squeeze the glutes, bring the knee to the chest, and we're going to straighten for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, and 10. Relax out. Just going to give it a little second. We're going to go straight into the next exercise. So tucking the tailbone under, squeezing the glutes, pulling that leg down on the band, and we're going to go out into a position you feel comfortable with, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, keep the back pressed down, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and relax out. Well done. Okay, we're going to go back to the first side and do the same thing again. So bringing that leg round, going into a position that feels comfortable for you, tucking everything under, squeezing through the lower abs. I know this is hard work, there's always so much to think about, but I promise you it will pay off when it transfers onto the pole. So we're going to bring the knee into the chest, and we're going to straighten for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10. Go into your position. We're going to go 1, 2, keep that glute squeezed, 3, 4, back down to the floor, keep it nice and squeezed, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, and 10. Woo, hopefully you're really feeling it working now. So going on to the other side, this is the last one we're going to do now. So just squeezing through the glute and the hamstring on this leg, and we're going to tuck the other one in, push the belly down towards the floor, squishing the back out, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10. Let's go straight into the mini straddles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10, and relax down. And just come up to sitting a little bit. If at any point throughout that exercise you found that your lower back was switching on, please remember what we talked about at the start, that because of where the hip flexors attach, if your hip flexors start to turn on and start taking over the exercise, then you are very likely to feel it in your lower back. So at that point you know that it's either too hard, you're doing too much, or you're not activating and engaging in the right places. Hopefully today's video has just given you some extra awareness about where you should be kind of feeling some of these exercises, how you can amend where you feel it, and some things to look out for that you don't want to feel. Okay, so to finish off today, we are going to just do a gentle stretch. So we are actually going to stretch out the hip flexors because they, as we know, can become overactive and over tight. So we're just going to give them a little chill out now. So we're going to bring one leg in front. We're going to do a 90-degree lunge. So we're going to tuck the tailbone under, again, getting that butt squeeze, opening out the front of the hip flexors. And what I want you to do is just sink forward until you feel this stretch in the front, but without losing this glute squeeze. So this is super important to keep. Then from here, we're just gonna lift up the same arm as open hip and just reach over into a nice side bend. As we know, the hip flexor attaches into that lower part of the spine. So by going into a nice deep side bend, we are stretching the upper fibers of the hip flexors, okay? Keeping that push forward. If you need to push forward even more, that's fine. You also might feel this a little bit in the quad. If you have tight quads, that's okay. We're never isolating anything, we're always just sort of trying to get into a specific place. And just take some nice deep breaths here. And then gently coming out, and we're going to keep that glute squeeze, and we're going to drop all the way through into a nice deep lunge now. Okay, so we're not getting so much into the upper fibers, but we're going to be opening out the kind of lower fibers of the hip flexor. Keep the butt squeezed. Take some nice deep breaths. Hopefully you should feel it nice and deeply in that front of the hip, especially when you squeeze the glute. Okay, and let's change sides. So coming into that 90-degree position first-ish, it doesn't need to be really specific. Tuck the tailbone under, squeeze that bum, and then you're just going to lean forward until you start to feel that stretch in the front of the hip, maintaining this kind of higher position. And then we're going to side bend over the top, really opening out those upper fibers of the hip flexors. Keeping the glute squeezed. Take some nice deep breaths here. And then gently coming out, keeping the bum squeezed. We're going to drop all the way down to a nice deep lunge, keeping that squeeze, keeping that activation. And breathing. Okay, and gently coming out. We're going to do a little bit of a stretch on the abs because they definitely have had a nice bit of work today. So we're going to lie completely flat to the floor, and we're just going to push up into a nice active cobra. So looking back with the head, leading forward with the chest, squeezing the glutes, and just getting a nice stretch through the front of the abs. Doesn't need to be crazy flexible. We are just thinking about stretching out the front of the body. And relaxing back down. Take a nice deep breath at the bottom. And then we're going to go up one more time. Squeezing the bum. And we're going to push the bum up, coming into all fours. And we're going to round the back out, sucking in the belly button, and then just drop, arching the back. We're just going to go through this movement a couple of times. Breathing in as we round out, and then breathing out as we arch down. And one more time. And just to finish off, we're going to do some nice big circles. And change direction. Last circle. And we are all done for today. Well done, everyone. You did awesome. I really hope that you found this informative and useful for your training. If you have liked any of the content that we went through today, then please check out my website, which is www.poledancing-therapist.com. I have lots of memberships available and lots of pole dance training as well, not just this off the pole stuff we talked about today. I specialise in sports rehabilitation and pole dance, so very interested in strengthening for pole dance and mitigating injuries. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.